I found myself in an opulently decorated morning hall, feeling out of place whether I sat or stood. The eerie atmosphere was palpable, and I didn't know what I was supposed to do. Despite expecting relatives to join me, no one came. The evening breeze blew in, casting shadows of tree branches across the room, making it feel as if someone might suddenly emerge from them. I sell houses for a living, and through a friend's introduction, I took up the job of a vigil keeper. They said it paid well, but I had no idea what I was doing. I found some prayers online and quietly recited them. It was my first time witnessing such a desolate vigil. Glancing at the eerie coffin, a wave of fear washed over me. Quickly, I averted my gaze and read some prayers from my phone.
Buddy, you passed away peacefully, but why is there no one here to mourn you?
Suddenly, a voice replied from above.
Why don't you give me one?
I was terrified, dropping my phone with a loud thud.
Who is speaking?
Silence. Was I hearing things?
Who's talking?
Maybe it was just my imagination, but my heart couldn't take it. I opened TikTok and played videos at full volume to calm my nerves. Eventually, I fell asleep and had a dream. I found myself standing behind a curtain in a room filled with luxurious rosewood furniture. It was grand and imposing. I was aware that I was asleep, yet I felt incredibly lucid. I intended to lift the curtain and take a look outside when I heard footsteps, followed by a conversation.
Have you really made up your mind?
Yes. The people are already suffering due to the turmoil. The Smith family, being the local gentry, should help the people in their time of need and not exploit the situation.
Very well indeed.
I was utterly confused. Turmoil? What turmoil? Exploiting the situation? Were they talking about the pandemic? I stayed hidden and continued to listen.
Yesterday, we received a telegram from the Southwest, stating that bandit forces are rising, causing great suffering to the local people. I can't bear to see the same happen in the East. If we can't provide timely help, we shouldn't add fuel to the fire.
The other person didn't respond. I only heard heavy, suppressed breathing, indicating that the other person was angry.
You're being foolish.
In my mind, I imagined a grand drama of national affairs. There was no more sound from outside, but I knew the two people hadn't left. Curiosity got the better of me and I peeked through a small gap. What I saw was shocking. A young man was standing in front of the curtain, frowning as he studied a piece of paper. Behind him, an older man took out a packet of white powder from his pocket and poured it into a teacup, all the while sneaking glances at the young man.
Hey!
The young man drew a gun and rushed in within 2 seconds. Terrified, I crouched down, covering my head in a submissive posture.
Who's there? Suspicious woman eavesdropping on secrets in the middle of the night.
He ordered a group of well-trained soldiers to come in. I was pinned to the ground, disheveled. The older man took a gun from one of the soldiers and I saw that it was loaded.
I'm just a vigil keeper, just a vigil keeper.
I looked up at the young man with innocent, pleading eyes. I had saved him, he shouldn't let me suffer.
She's with me. I brought her here. If she stays at my residence, it might cause some rumors, but she's not an enemy.
The older man clearly didn't believe him, but the young man argued convincingly and managed to protect me. After the older man left, he gave me a fierce glare that pierced my heart. My heart pounded and I knew I had to avoid him in the future. The room now held just me and the young man. To save my own skin and show loyalty, I recounted everything that had just transpired.
Sam, bring in the dog.
Sam White, his subordinate, nodded and soon returned with a dog. The animal drank water mixed with a white powder. Within minutes, it started convulsing and eventually passed away.
I trust you now. You can stay.
Arthur Connor and his subordinate, Sam White, had accepted me. I was placed in a spacious room with 2 beds, separated by a curtain. One bed was on the south side and the other on the north side. There were others in the courtyard, likely servants or maids. Exhausted, I fell asleep almost immediately. Before drifting off, a strange thought crossed my mind. It turns out you can sleep in a dream too. This dream felt so real. The next morning, a girl came to wake me up. As a seasoned snoozer, there was no way I could wake up immediately. I had to lie in bed for another 15 minutes.
Time to get up.
I responded groggily and continued to sleep. This cycle repeated until she left. A few seconds later, a gun was pressed against my forehead.
Are you getting up or not?
Startled awake, I scrambled to get up. This method of waking someone up was indeed effective. During the day, I planned to go out for a walk, but the guard stopped me.
Mr. Connor's orders. You can't leave.
Frustrated, I went to find Mr. Connor.
Why can't I go out?
Do you want to get hurt?
No.
Then stay put.
Observing him, I noticed his dignified aura. He wore a long black coat, fitting the attire of the Republic of China era as seen in TV dramas. An idea formed in my mind. I flipped my hair and walked over to Arthur Connor, intending to act coy by tugging at a small corner of his coat. Before I could say anything, I was pushed to the ground, thrown out in a parabolic arc. I was put under strict confinement. Meals were brought to me, and now I couldn't even leave the bedroom.
This darn dream, why is it so long? I really want to wake up.
As it got darker outside, I felt no sleepiness and started doing jumping jacks and leg stretches in the room to avoid gaining weight. With a creak, the door opened. Arthur Connor entered, bathed in moonlight. However, he closed the door the next moment. I instinctively stepped back, imagining a dramatic scene of a damsel in distress.
You are the 13th.
You're boasting about your charm?
You're a guardian too, aren't you?
I didn't expect him to ask about my profession. But wait, do the people in my dream know about my real-life job? This dream was too strange.
You're not dreaming.
His words left me stunned, unable to process them.
You are the 13th guardian to be brought in. Although you think you're dreaming, your soul has entered this place. If you get hurt here, you will be hurt when you wake up too.
Previous guardians would wake up in the morning and immediately demand to leave.
When can I wake up? How long do I have to stay here?
15 days here is equivalent to 1 night outside.
So, I had to stay here for 15 days to get out. I didn't dare to wander around anymore. This was the Republic of China era, and I feared becoming a casualty. My daily life became eating, drinking, and strolling around the courtyard. This routine lasted for 4 days. The only downside was that Arthur Connor and I were actually living in the same room. The other bed was his, separated only by a curtain. I was both flattered and uneasy. Though we lived together, we hardly saw each other. He would get up before I did in the morning, and I would be asleep before he returned at night. We were like strangers, not at all like two people sharing a room. On the 5th night, Arthur Connor unexpectedly invited me out. I dressed like a local and gazed out the car window. Some trendy girls were strolling by, adorned in stockings, curly hair, and large earrings. Their attire made me feel like a country bumpkin.
He cart-jolted along the road, far from the smooth rides of modern vehicles. The gap between Arthur Connor and me kept shrinking, and my shoulder brushed against his arm a few times. Just as I began to savor this fleeting warmth, he moved a few inches away, leaving me feeling awkward.
The car stopped in front of a dance hall. The receptionist greeted us in unison.
Good evening, Mr. Connor.
Inside, women in flamboyant outfits danced to lively music. The audience, mostly dignitaries, cheered and applauded, surrounded by subordinates. Their expressions made me uncomfortable, thinking of their wives probably at home putting their children to bed.
Follow me to the 2nd floor.
He led me to a private room with an excellent view. It seemed Arthur Connor was quite familiar with this place, suggesting he frequented it. This thought left me feeling down. The women on stage were captivating with flawless skin. I secretly observed Arthur Connor. I wondered if he preferred such perfect women. So I stood no chance. Surprisingly, he didn't seem to be watching the performance. He gave me the best viewing spot and went to the back to drink with Sam White. When the song ended, a new performer took the stage. Though beautiful, she couldn't compare to the previous one. The woman I had been thinking about came upstairs, dressed in a high-slit cheongsam, moving gracefully. She glanced at me dismissively, showing a hint of disdain. I felt a surge of anger. "What are you looking at, old lady?"
Mr. Connor, come to my place tonight.
I was stunned by her boldness. I stared at Arthur Connor, remembering how he had once left me outside and locked me up. Now he was flirting with another woman right in front of me. Suddenly, I felt disdain for Arthur Connor. At home, he was cold to everyone but especially kind to me. I thought it was a special affection, but it seems not. Thinking this, I pushed the pig's trotters on the table further away.
Show her out, Sam.
The woman refused to leave, pressing herself against Arthur Connor. I gasped at her audacity and quickly looked away. Suddenly, a gunshot rang out. Arthur Connor, with a cold, handsome face, held a gun. A hole appeared in the tableware in front of him. The woman collapsed in fright and I was startled. Arthur Connor glanced at me apologetically. The next moment, Sam White dragged the woman out. That night, sharing a room with Arthur Connor felt awkward. Usually, I went to bed early and he returned late at night. But tonight, we came back together, a man and a woman alone in a room. According to common sense, something should happen.
Did that girl mistake you for someone else tonight?
No.
Oh, then, were you too close?
We've met a few times.
Boring. He dares to do but not to admit. A few times? Just meetings? No further development?
That night in the morning hall, was it you who spoke to me?
Arthur Connor didn't answer, his eyes avoiding mine, focusing on his tea. I discreetly inquired about Arthur Connor's romantic history from the servants, but they were tight-lipped. One morning, Arthur Connor suddenly mentioned this.
If you have any questions, you can ask me directly. I can tell you what you want to know. We don't have the kind of relationship you think.
I was startled, mumbled a few responses and quickly ran away. My confinement was lifted, and I began to move freely within the Smith family estate. Fortunately, the courtyard was large enough to keep me entertained. Sometimes Arthur Connor allowed me to dine with him. At the table he even served me food, making me dizzy with delight. If he were a man from the 21st century, I would have proposed to him on the spot. At night he took me to the market. I lingered at the exquisite stalls and even visited a Western restaurant, marveling at the era's development. While buying sugar figures, the old lady was slow and I grew impatient. Arthur Connor waited nearby.
Grandma, do you wear such small shoes?
The old lady didn't answer and I felt a bit awkward.
She has bound feet.
Aw.
I hadn't expected foot binding to still exist in this society. Thinking of history, I felt sorry for the old lady. Every step she took seemed painful. After buying the sugar figure, I lost my appetite.
This era is just like this. You don't need to feel sad.
I didn't understand what he meant. This era? Had he been to other eras? He belonged to this era. In the days that followed, the Smith family was in a frenzy, preparing for their grand annual sacrificial ceremony. This was their most important event of the year and they took it very seriously.
Arthur Connor seemed equally busy, and our interactions became less frequent. Instead, servants handled all our communications, bringing ginger tea when it rained, daily necessities, and skincare products from the Republic era.
Arthur is exactly my type. Sharp eyebrows and bright eyes. If he were in the modern entertainment industry, he'd be a leading man, easily outshining the young stars.
Sometimes, Emily would deliberately stay up late, hoping to catch a glimpse of him.
Maybe tonight he'll talk to me.
Occasionally, he would just glance at her, and other times, greet her with a faint attitude.
Any night, while Emily was asleep, someone entered the room. Thinking it was Arthur, she didn't pay much attention. Just as she closed her eyes, she was suddenly bound, along with the quilt, unable to move. Her heart pounded in fear.
What's happening?
She was taken to a riverside, hearing the sound of flowing water and the rustling footsteps of many people. She hoped Arthur would come to rescue her.
So, Are you going to hand over the item or not? Your master is in my hands.
Ridiculous. How do we know it's true when you have them wrapped up like this?
I took this person from Arthur Connor's bed. You've been tracking us all the way, this can't be fake.
Emily suddenly understood, they had mistaken her for Arthur.
I need to make a sound. Let them know I'm a woman.
The two sides argued and finally decided to unwrap her. She saw the light of the torches illuminating the area, with the rushing river behind her.
What's going on?
Both groups realized the mistake and began to quarrel. Sam intended to take Emily back.
Please, don't hurt me.
Where did this woman come from?
A woman, the same one Arthur had thrown out of the dance hall, recognized Emily. She walked over, slapping her and calling her names.
Sam, please help me.
But Sam turned to leave and Emily cried, begging him.
Don't leave me.
He left without hesitation.
So this was all planned. The care and concern were just a facade, part of a scheme.
Not long after he left, an explosion occurred by the river, injuring nearly half the soldiers. Dust filled the air, covering Emily's face. She saw Arthur rushing towards her, taking off his coat to cover her.
Are you okay?
Emily didn't know how long she slept. When she woke up, she was back at the vigil site.
What's going on?
She went to check the memorial tablet, and the name on it was indeed Arthur Connor. It felt surreal that someone in the Republic era had the same name.
Am I dreaming?
Outside, she heard voices, Arthur's cousin and aunt. They looked at her suspiciously.
Are you still continuing today? You weren't hurt?
Continuing what?
The vigil, of course.
Of course. I will continue.
Their attitudes changed immediately, and they brought out breakfast, warmly urging her to eat.
Every vigil keeper would be pulled into Arthur's world, where they might get hurt because the dream was too real.
Emily bought pepper spray during the day. At night, she prayed and went to sleep as usual.
I hope this works.
When she opened her eyes, she was back in Arthur's room. He was wearing a thin shirt, seemingly ready for bed.
Ahem.
Are you okay?
I'm fine.
How did you get in again? Didn't you leave?
I couldn't stay away.
Aren't you afraid?
I bought pepper spray. Where's my weapon? It was in my pocket.
Things from outside can't be brought in.
He patted her head affectionately. When she looked up, she saw the gentlest eyes, like the warm sun of summer, melting her.
The Arthur Connor you see at the vigil is from 100 years later. He had an accident but found himself back 100 years earlier, with memories of both lives.
So that's why vigil keepers are pulled into this world.
Yes. I have to imprison them for 15 days until they disappear automatically.
I think I like you.
But I'm already gone. You will eventually return to the real world.
But I can come here at night, can I?
You're the most unique vigil keeper I've ever met.
So, you heard me mocking you on the first day?
Yes, just a bit.
They quickly confirmed their relationship, and Emily had a wild idea. She wanted to take him out.
Let's find a way to bring you to my world.
How could that be? In that world, I'm already gone.
When the 15-day period ended, Emily returned to the vigil site and stayed until Arthur's burial. She followed to the grave.
I have to see him again.
She kept traveling between home and the grave. At night, when she took a taxi, the driver looked at her suspiciously. She couldn't explain to anyone, so she ignored it and wiped the powder off her dress.
Strange girl.
Emily went to Arthur's grave alone. When she fell asleep, she found herself beside him.
I'm here again.
Later, she discovered that as long as she slept at night, she would come to the Republic era without needing to go to the grave. She was very happy, eagerly anticipating the nights. In the Republic era, she saw a different world. They held a wedding and lived an ordinary life.
This is our world now.
Using modern knowledge, Emily advised Arthur, helping him solve many problems and seize opportunities, making a fortune. Life was smooth.
I'll always keep you safe.
When Emily returned to the real world, Arthur told others she was worshipping in a temple, so no one suspected.
What if one day I can't enter this world anymore? What will you do?
I will love you until the end of time. Our happiness is stolen. I've already died once. Meeting you again is the greatest fortune of my life. I don't dare to ask for more. After you leave, I won't take another wife. I will live the rest of my life peacefully.
At first, they were anxious. For 3 years, life continued in this manner. Then, on a stormy night, the tempest arrived.
I can't enter Arthur Connor's world anymore. Even at his grave, it's useless. I'm completely shut out.
Emma screamed and shouted in the graveyard, refusing to leave. She even slept there during the day, but to no avail. The cemetery caretaker, noticing her abnormal behavior, posted about her online, hoping to seek help.
This woman needs help. Can anyone assist?
More and more people contacted Emma, claiming to be psychologists wanting to help her. But she wasn't ill, they just didn't believe her.
Miss, we want to help you. Why don't you come with us?
I'm not sick. You don't understand.
Emma was confined to a psychiatric hospital. Wearing a patient's gown, she walked among the other patients, numbly watching the doctors treating her.
Leave me alone. I'm not one of these people.
She hit one of the doctors, which only resulted in a longer stay.
Restrain her. We need to extend her treatment.
The psychiatrist believed she had a mental issue, a delusion, and wanted to treat her. Emma was convinced she was fine.
I'm not crazy. Please, listen to me.
The doctors gathered privately to discuss and mock her tale.
This girl is beyond help, lost in her fantasies about her husband from the past. She's watched too many dramas.
Emma burst into the office, brandishing a broom and wreaking havoc.
You're all wrong. How dare you mock me?
The doctors added a new diagnosis: aggression.
Increase her monitoring. She's a danger to herself and others.
Emma's freedom was severely restricted, and she was forced to undergo meaningless treatments. She often disrupted their work, revealing the hospital's hidden secrets.
Who do you think you are, assuming I'm ill?
Over time, both Emma and the doctors became numb. She began to silently sabotage their work, hoping they would release her. Days turned into months. In the psychiatric hospital, surrounded by those deemed insane, no one listened to Emma. The doctors subjected her to inhumane treatments, including electric shocks.
I will expose their crimes and seek revenge.
Emma changed her strategy, no longer mentioning the past, and actively cooperated with the doctors' so-called treatments.
She's finally cooperating. Maybe there's hope.
Finally, in a season when the peach blossoms bloomed, Emma was discharged.
I will make them pay for what they did to me.
On the day of her release, Emma uploaded all the evidence she had saved on her phone, over 100 photos, and even started a live stream to explain everything.
This is what they did to me. The world needs to know.
It quickly caused a stir online, and she saw the doctors being interviewed.
Her condition hadn't improved, which is why she has such unrealistic fantasies.
Fearing they would come for her again, Emma hid her information, converted all her money to cash, and moved to another city, a place by the sea.
This is where I wanted to spend my later years with Arthur Connor.
After a month of rest, Emma finally emerged from the shadow of the hospital and decided to start a new life.
Arthur Connor and the dreams remain in my memories.
Emma, the editorial team is having a dinner tonight. Shall we go together?
Sure.
Her colleagues knew nothing of her past, unaware that she had spent a year and a half in a psychiatric hospital. Emma was convinced she wasn't ill.
Those vivid memories couldn't be false.
The dinner was at a hot pot restaurant. Everyone brought their partners and friends. Emma felt a rare sense of happiness.
Emma, do you have a partner?
Emma felt a sudden panic. In the psychiatric hospital, the doctors had always scrutinized her like this.
I was once married, but we separated for certain reasons. So, I'm single now.
Her answer sparked a lively discussion. The single men who had been friendly towards her now looked different. Emma didn't mind. Her heart had no room for anyone else.
Wait a moment, I'm going to fetch someone.
She had come alone tonight, and everyone eagerly anticipated her companion.
Hurry up, bring your boyfriend in so we can meet him.
Lily walked lightly, her steps almost a dance. Emma took this chance to get some fresh air. The hot pot restaurant was bustling. Emma found a quiet corner to sit, taking deep breaths to expel the gloom from her heart.
Was I really from the same era as them? Could it be that I was wrong?
Emma, why are you sitting here?
Lily's clear voice interrupted Emma's thoughts, pulling her back to reality. Emma composed her expression, arranging her features into a gentle demeanor. As she turned her head, she felt the world collapse.
That person, the one from the past, had appeared.
The world around me spun, everything becoming a blur. I tried to call out Arthur Connor's name, but my tongue felt tied and my throat seemed blocked. I whimpered, "Thursday. Con. No." As I fainted, I saw him remain unmoved. When I woke up in the hospital, I immediately felt nauseous. Memories flooded back. The doctor rushed towards me, but I pushed him away and dashed out of the room. Running out of the hospital, a sharp pain flared in my stomach. I placed my palm on my stomach, gently rubbing it. Lily Moore arrived behind me. I hadn't noticed her in my haste.
Where's your friend? I had seen Arthur Connor with her at the store, but now he was nowhere to be found. Didn't he care enough to check on me when I fainted?
Which one? Oh, you mean the one you saw before you fainted. That's my boyfriend. We're about to get engaged. My mom is particularly fond of him.
Lily caught me as I was about to collapse.
You said he's your boyfriend?
Lily nodded mechanically, her eyes now wary.
Why?
Do you know him?
Know him? More than just know him. He is my husband. We lived together for 3 years. The moment he stood there, I knew it was him. The mole at the corner of his mouth, the unique scent of osmanthus from the Smith family's house. But now, facing Lily, I couldn't say it out loud. The air seemed to freeze.
He looks a lot like a friend of mine. Can you give me his contact information? I need to confirm something.
Lily's eyes turned sharp, and she withdrew her hand that had been supporting me. She flipped her hair.
Emma, I was the only one who saw you faint. Out of kindness, I stayed at the hospital with you all night instead of going to the dinner party. But you didn't even say thank you when you woke up. I'm not one to be petty, but now you're asking for my boyfriend's contact information. Don't you think that's a bit inappropriate?
That night I couldn't sleep. I dreamed of the days Arthur Connor and I spent together. We discussed the differences between the Republic era and modern times on the streets. He took me to see significant historical events. We often ran businesses together. He taught me how to check accounts, how to do bookkeeping, and how to read ledgers. His every smile and frown are etched in my memory forever. Since that night, my relationship with Lily became strained. No colleagues invited me to gatherings anymore, and Lily's boyfriend never appeared before us again. But I couldn't give up. He was my only spiritual support in this world. When I was suffering in the mental hospital, all I thought about was reuniting with him. How could he leave me behind? I started following Lily after work. Sure enough, on the 4th day, Lily went to the cinema. As soon as she got out of the car, a man approached her. We were dozens of meters apart, but just by his walking posture and facial outline, I knew it was him. I rushed towards them like a madwoman. Lily was startled, quickly pushing Arthur Connor inside. I grabbed Arthur Connor tightly.
Do you really not recognize me?
People passing by stopped, curiously watching the three of us. Arthur Connor was stunned for a second, then put on a fake smile.
Sorry, you must have mistaken me for someone else. I don't know you.
No matter how people disguise themselves, their subconscious actions can't lie. I grabbed his arm, pulling his sleeve up to his shoulder, revealing a large tree tattoo on the inside of his arm. I couldn't hold it in anymore and burst into tears. It was him, it really was him. In the second year after we met, we were strolling through the streets of Haiping when we came across a tattoo shop.
Look, Arthur, they have tattoos even in this era.
This is my first time seeing one too.
Let's get tattoos then. Leave a mark so that if I ever lose you, I can find you with this tattoo.
I want the most unique one. I want to be the most special, so you won't mistake me for someone else.
I drew a small tree on the spot, crooked and uneven. Arthur Connor laughed at me, but I said that this was what made it unique. Unexpectedly, nearly 80 years later, I saw my creation in the modern world. All the emotions I had suppressed for 2 years reached their peak at that moment. All my grievances and frustrations surged up.
Arthur, it's really you.
Arthur Connor finally showed concern. He looked at me with care and softly asked,
Miss, why don't you take a moment to calm down? Don't be too sad. Maybe I've seen you before but don't remember. Let's try to recall together.
Lily Moore and her boyfriend didn't get to watch their movie and stood by with sour faces, but I didn't care at all.
Can you tell me where we met?
This stumped me. The Republic of China? A funeral hall? My throat felt choked and I couldn't find the right words.
Emma Green, we are colleagues. Please don't make a scene.
How did you get your tattoo? This design is very special because I created it myself, and it's one of a kind.
Lily Moore shot me a sharp look. I held my breath, waiting for his answer.
I'm sorry, I don't know how I got this tattoo. I had an accident a few years ago and lost part of my memory, so this tattoo.
Both Lily Moore and I widened our eyes.
You had an accident before?
Lily Moore's voice became sharp with tension, and she immediately covered her mouth after saying it. We all knew what this meant. Although I didn't know why Arthur Connor from the Republic of China appeared here, I was sure it was him, and that was enough. Despite Lily Moore's strong objections, we exchanged contact information.
I told him my story, and he didn't laugh at me like a doctor would, thinking I was delusional. Instead, he comforted me.
It seems you really love your husband. I respect everyone's thoughts. When I had my accident, many people said I wouldn't wake up. It was my mom who insisted on treatment, and that's why I'm alive today. She tried many strange methods to save me. People around her thought she was crazy, didn't understand her, pitied her, and laughed at her. But in the end, she succeeded. I'm doing well now, and doctors call it a medical miracle. So I believe what you said.
He was the first person to speak to me in such a calm tone after hearing my story. At that moment, I felt very comforted. My Arthur Connor was always a kind person and I was proud of him. My phone rang and what he said next plunged me into despair.
But no matter what, you and your husband have been separated for various reasons. Even if I am the person you say I am, it doesn't matter now. I have my own life, and I even have a new girlfriend. You should move on and not be stuck in the past.
He told me his name in this era, John Smith. I took a week off and didn't leave my room. I was lost in confusion. Should I really let go? I suddenly resented fate. Why give me hope only to disappoint me? If I had just continued with my life without meeting someone who looked like Arthur Connor, wouldn't it have been better? A week later, I went to submit my resignation. Perhaps I really should let go. The warm times in the Republic of China were only remembered by me. I invested all my savings into a seaside guest house. Enthusiastic guests arrived daily and my mood gradually improved. The memories of Arthur Connor from the Republic era felt like they belonged to a past life. I poured all my energy into running the guest house and business thrived, gaining local fame. The knowledge Arthur Connor taught me in the Republic era stayed with me. One sunny afternoon, with fresh air and the sound of cicadas all around, a special guest arrived at the guest house. Even before the person arrived, they called ahead, requesting to rent an entire floor. Each room was to be adorned with osmanthus flowers, and the doors were to be left open. From 2 p.m. to 7 p.m., various items were moved in one after another. The young girls working at the guest house thought it was for a marriage proposal and were so excited they could hardly contain themselves. But to their surprise, many antique-style pieces of furniture were brought in.
Kindly, sir, we are just a guest house. If your boss is only staying for a short while, these items might be a bit excessive.
Laughs heartily, don't worry about it. We'll have everything cleared out by tonight.
Since they had rented an entire floor, there weren't many other guests today. The staff were all curious to see what activities the guest had planned for the evening. By 8 p.m., there was still no sign of any activity. Feeling tired, I casually asked,
What's the name registered for the guest?
Arthur Connor.
A flood of distant memories overwhelmed me and I felt paralyzed. At 8:01 p.m., the clock chimed, and I saw a man holding flowers slowly walk in from the entrance. He wore a gentle smile and walked briskly towards me. My mind buzzed and a wave of confusion washed over me. As I looked at him, tears streamed down my face, spanning 80 years of memories.
I've come to take you home, my dear.
Later, Arthur Connor told me.
I searched for you for so long. I waited in the Republic era for one 15-day period after another, but you never came. Years passed, and then the Republic fell into war. The car I was in had an accident during the chaos, and I found myself back in this world. But my memories were completely gone and only started to return a few days ago.
I couldn't hold